In the cutthroat underworld of international commerce and shadow syndicates, power is the only currency that matters. But the most dangerous kind of power is the one you never see coming. This is the story of Chidera Obi, a woman born into unimaginable global wealth, and Kang Jae-hwan, a man consumed by his own absolute authority. When their worlds collided in a sprawling mansion in Seoul, a brutal lesson in humility was written in blood, billions, and broken pride. Unassuming African woman working the grueling night shifts at the Kang estate, her frame swallowed by a generic gray maid's uniform. But beneath the surface lay a royal lineage of modern commerce. Chidera was the sole heiress to the Obi Global Shipping Empire, a multi-billion-dollar maritime conglomerate based in Nigeria. Her father, Chief Obi, was a titan whose vessels controlled the primary trade arteries across the Atlantic and the ports of Port Harcourt and Lagos. Chidera herself held a master's degree from an elite Swiss institution and was a lethal asset trained in both corporate warfare and advanced executive self-defense. She hadn't come to South Korea for a job. She had come for asylum. 2 months prior, a violent corporate coup back home had threatened her life, with rival factions targeting her to force her father's hand. To protect her, Chief Obi had ordered her to vanish. Disguising herself as an undocumented migrant worker in a foreign country where she knew no one and where no one would ever look for a billionaire's daughter was the perfect cover. She chose the Chang estate because it was heavily fortified, entirely unaware that the master of the house was a monster of a different kind. Kang Jae-hwan was the undisputed boss of the Dongdae Syndicate, a powerful Korean Mafia family that disguised its vast criminal enterprises behind legitimate logistics corporations. His power was absolute. His wealth was measured in private skyscrapers, hidden offshore accounts, and the politicians he bought and sold. He was a man accustomed to total obedience. His residence was a reflection of his soul, a brutalist, hyper-modern fortress built into the cliffs of Seongbuk-dong. The mansion was a monolith of exposed concrete, dark Italian marble, and bulletproof glass, looming over Seoul like a predator watching its prey. Jae-hwan operated with a cold, sociopathic detachment, viewing anyone beneath his socioeconomic status as subhuman utility. Jae-hwan's cruelty toward Chidera was not born out of passion, but out of a casual, systemic desire to remind her of her place. The first incident occurred during Chidera's second week. Jae-hwan was walking through the Grand Gallery when a rare, priceless Qing Dynasty vase placed precariously on a pedestal by another staff member wobbled as Chidera passed by with her cleaning cart. It shattered on the marble. Jae-hwan didn't yell. He merely walked over, his custom leather shoes crunching the priceless porcelain shards. He looked at Chidera's bowed head and laughed softly. "Do you know how many lifetimes a person from your continent would have to labor to pay for a fraction of this clay?" he asked, his voice dripping with condescension. "You are completely useless to a civilized household. Clean it up with your bare hands. Let the cuts remind you of your incompetence." Chidera silently picked up the razor-sharp shards, her palms bleeding, keeping her rage locked behind a stone mask. Juan was hosting a private gathering of elite syndicate bosses on the covered terrace. He noticed a smudge on the glass railing outside, fully exposed to the driving rain. He summoned Chidera and ordered her to clean it from the outside platform. When she stepped out into the freezing storm, he locked the heavy glass doors behind her. For 30 minutes, while his guests drank expensive scotch and laughed, Chidera stood in the torrential, freezing rain, scrubbing a clean window while Ji-hwan mockingly toasted his glass toward her through the pane, treating her suffering as a background cabaret for his criminal associates. The final daily indignity happened in the main study. Chidera had spent hours polishing the intricate parquet flooring on her knees. Ji-hwan entered, holding a glass of dark red wine. He paused, looking down at her sweat-streaked forehead. "Your very presence pollutes the air of this room," he murmured, before casually tipping his glass over, pouring the dark red liquid directly onto the freshly polished wood. When Chidera moved to clean it, he deliberately kicked her dirty plastic bucket. The gray, soapy water flooded the room, soaking her uniform and ruining hours of work. "Start over," he said coldly, "and make sure you crawl faster this time." One midnight, Chidera was finishing the ruined floor of the study when the heavy double doors clicked open. It wasn't the security team. 3 assassins from the rival Beak Ho faction, clad in dark leather and smelling of cheap liquor and cordite, slipped into the room. They had bypassed the outer perimeter. Chidera's heart didn't spike with fear. It settled into a cold, rhythmic, lethal thumping. Her adrenaline sharpened her vision until the room seemed to move in slow motion. When Chuan walked into the room moments later, he found himself cornered. The leader of the assassins grabbed Chidera by the hair, dragging her forward as a human shield. Ji-hwan's face remained a mask of pure arrogance. "She is an illiterate maid from the streets," Ji-hwan told the gunman, his voice devoid of humanity. "Her life isn't worth the ink in my pen. Shoot her if you like. It saves me the trouble of firing her." The lead assassin smiled, his finger tightening on the trigger of his silenced pistol. In that microsecond, Chidera struck. She didn't flinch. She exploded into movement. With a lightning-fast redirection technique, she twisted her head away from the barrel, her left hand striking the assassin's wrist with a sickening snap that broke his radius. In the same fluid motion, she drove her heel down into his kneecap, shattering it. As he screamed, she snatched the pistol from his failing grip, spun on her heel, and delivered a devastating, spinning back kick into the chest of the second assassin, launching him through a glass coffee table. The third assassin drew his blade, lunging at her. Chidera sidestepped with grace, her chest rising and falling in perfect, controlled breaths. She grabbed his extended arm, executed a flawless shoulder throw, and slammed his skull into the solid mahogany desk, knocking him instantly unconscious. The entire room fell into an echoing silence, broken only by the groans of broken men. Chidera stood amidst the wreckage, holding the firearm with professional, military-grade posture. The submissive maid was gone. A queen of absolute lethal authority stood in her place. Juan's jaw tightened, his usual stoic facade fracturing into complete shock. He stared at her, his mind struggling to process the violence he had just witnessed from a woman he had called subhuman. What are you?" he stammered. Before she could speak, the secure satellite phone on the desk rang. Chidera reached out and pressed the speaker button. A booming, aristocratic voice filled the room in flawless English. "Chidera, my child, it is father. The coup in Abuja has been crushed. The traitors have been executed or imprisoned. Your private jet is fueled and authorized to land at Ryanchan Airport within the hour. You can stop playing this ridiculous game of hiding in that backwater mansion. John froze, his breath catching in his throat as the name Obi registered in his brilliant criminal mind. The voice continued, cold and heavy as iron. And Chidera, tell the boy running the Kang Syndicate that while you were scrubbing his floors tonight, Obi Global Shipping purchased 40% of his legitimate maritime docks. If he has finished mistreating my heiress, I would like my daughter back. If she has so much as a scratch on her, I will sink his entire empire into the Yellow Sea by dawn. The line cut. The transformation in Ji-won was instantaneous and pathetic. The arrogant, untouchable mafia boss withered. His face paled to a sickly, ghostly white. His hands, usually perfectly still, trembled slightly as he looked at the woman he had forced to crawl on her knees. The disappointment and sheer terror on his face were absolute. He realized in a single moment that he hadn't been harboring a stray dog. He had been insulting a goddess who held the financial life support of his entire syndicate in her hands. Chidera, he whispered, his voice cracking, his proud posture collapsing into a desperate, pleading slouch. I did not know. The intelligence reports. You knew exactly what you thought I was, Chairman Kang, Chidera interrupted, her voice ringing with the elite, diamond-cut British accent of high society. She walked slowly toward him, each step measured and heavy with an authority he could no longer deny. She stopped just inches away, looking down at his trembling frame. "Look at me," she commanded, her voice dropping into a dangerous, quiet chill. "You didn't mistreat me because of an intelligence failure. You mistreated me because you believed I was powerless. And to a man like you, the powerless do not deserve dignity. You poured your wine on the floor and made me crawl because your insecure ego requires other people to be beneath your feet just so you can feel tall." She leaned in closer, ensuring her words burned into his memory. "Let this be the most expensive lesson of your life. Chairman Kang, never mistake someone's silence for weakness, and never mistake their current position for their ultimate destination. The world spins, and empires fall in a single night. When you look at a maid, a driver, or a street sweeper from this day on, remember my face. Because the next person you decide to humiliate might just have the power to buy your entire life and tear it down for amusement. You thought I was nothing, but turned out I am the one holding your leash." She dropped the gun onto his desk with a heavy clatter. "You thought I was weak. You thought I was nothing. Now look at who is begging." For the remaining 3 hours before her dawn departure, the power dynamic of the Seung-buk-dong fortress completely inverted. Johan became a frantic, desperate servant in his own home. He banished the remaining security, personally bringing out his finest imported silks to replace her ruined uniform. He ordered his private chefs to prepare a royal banquet, trembling as he presented her with rare delicacies, trying frantically to explain away his past cruelties as syndicate stress and security protocols. He offered her massive ownership stakes in his northern roots, begging for a partnership, his eyes wide with the frantic terror of a man watching his life's work vanish. But Chidera didn't eat a single bite. She sat in the grand armchair, watching him grovel with a look of quiet, amused pity. Every attempt he made to impress her, every expensive gift he brought to her feet, only made him look smaller. When the sun broke over the Seoul horizon, painting the sky in streaks of gold and red, a fleet of black armored SUVs arrived at the gate, not Kang's men, but a private international security detail bearing the Obi family crest. Chidera stood up, stepping over the expensive jewelry Ji-hwan had laid out for her. She walked to the front doors without looking back. Ji-hwan followed her to the courtyard, practically on his knees, pleading for a single word of forgiveness, a promise that his docks wouldn't be destroyed. At the door of her vehicle, Chidera paused. She finally turned her gaze to the shivering mafia boss. "Arrogance is a very expensive luxury, Mr. Kang," she said softly, adjusting her luxury trench coat. "You owe me 3 months of maid's wages. Keep the change. You're going to need it to buy back your docks." She slid into the vehicle, the door closing with a heavy, absolute thud. As the convoy tore away toward Incheon Airport, leaving Jokwon ruined and frozen in the morning mist, Chidera looked out the window at the receding city, ready to reclaim her empire. At its core, this story serves as a powerful reminder that human dignity is non-negotiable and absolute, regardless of someone's social status, occupation, or background. Arrogance blinds people to the true value of others. True power isn't measured by how many people you can force to kneel beneath you. It is measured by how you treat those you think have nothing to offer you. The world is entirely unpredictable, and positions can shift in a heartbeat. Never mistake someone's temporary struggle for their permanent identity, and never mistake a quiet posture for weakness. Treat every individual with respect, because a person's current position is never a reflection of their ultimate destination. If this story of hidden power, shattered pride, and ultimate justice resonated with you, don't let the message stop here. Drop a like if you loved seeing Chidera reclaim her crown and teach the mafia boss a lesson he will never forget. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another high-stakes, cross-cultural romantic thriller or powerful narrative. Share your thoughts. How would you have reacted if you were in Jawan's shoes when that phone call came through? Leave a comment below. We read every single one.